What do you expect Dave Gettleman to do at number 6?
You know, all indications are, Greeny, you get off calls. That's what you're doing this time of year, is making calls to the friends that you have that kind of have a feel for what's going on. And nobody knows for sure. Nobody's 100%. Dave Gettleman's the only one that knows. And people in the organization he wants to tell, obviously. But I think you look at that 6th pick. If they want to go defense and they have identified a quarterback other than Dwayne Haskins that they want at 17, do they sit at 17 and wait for, say, Daniel Jones-Duke to fall to them? Do they trade up from 17 ahead of Washington? Do they take Daniel Jones at 6? That's the question, that burning question. Nobody has a real answer for. Dave Gettleman's going to answer that. And I think he's handled this whole situation ideally. He's defending himself against a lot of questioning. But he says, hey, I've had Super Bowls. I've been associated with Super Bowls. I know what it takes to win in this league. Just because you've been to Super Bowls doesn't mean you'll ever get back to another one, Greeny. But I think he's handled it professionally. He knows what he wants. I've said all along, they got to come out of the first round or the early to mid-second with a quarterback.
That's the thing. There's two thoughts that you bring up there. One of them is, I love that he's defending himself against what he didn't do in this draft when the draft hasn't happened yet. We don't know what he's going to do. That's sort of the way the cycle has become. But to your other point, let's leave it there. Whether it is 6 or 17 or some combination thereof, the Giants need to come out of this week with a quarterback, right?
No doubt. And I think you look at it, years keep going by, and I understand if you don't love any of the quarterbacks, but at some point, Greeny, you're going to have to love somebody. You're going to have to just take that leap of faith, as Brian Billick used to say with quarterbacks, and go forward. And if you don't hit on that, go ahead and get another one. I mean, they're not expensive anymore like they were, back years ago when you had to, just put so much money into your number 1 pick quarterback or your first round pick quarterback. So to me, you got to take one. And I'm not saying it has to be first round, because you think about some of the real good quarterbacks went second round. Great teams have passed before and got that quarterback. Remember Tomlinson and then Breeze with the Chargers. Remember Brett Favre dropping into the early second. So it's happened. Boomer Esiason going way back. And so it's happened before. It'll happen again. But I really believe when the first round ends, the Giants will have a quarterback.
All right, Mel, sit tight. We'll get back to you a little later this hour. We have a lot more to do just 3 days from the draft.
Thanks, Greeny.
So we'll get back to him, but meanwhile, we got to look at Mike Tannenbaum. It's been a long time since I've seen you. How are you? Of course, one of our new analysts here, and Phil Yates. I see you enough. Anyway,
good to see you as well.
Always a pleasure. You know that. So, okay, let's get down to business here. The Giants at 6. I've got a sneak preview of what it is you're about to tell me you think they're going to do, and so I'm just going to give you the floor.
So it's Monday, and this is the time of the week where we say what a team would like to do and how it fits perfectly like a puzzle. So at pick 6, the Giants take their preferred defensive end, a pass rusher, in a very deep class. And then you wait. At pick 17, you take a quarterback. But here's what happens come Thursday, Greeny. Quarterbacks move further up the board. Think about just last year in the NFL draft. The Jets moved up from 6 to 3 to get Sam Darnold. The Bills moved up from 12 to 7 to get Josh Allen. The Cardinals, who are now on the precipice of taking Kyler Murray, moved up to pick 10 to get Josh Rosen. So I think that if the Giants are considering a quarterback, even if they feel stronger overall about a prospect at defensive end at pick 6, you have to consider taking a quarterback, and it does seem like Daniel Jones. Yes, that Daniel Jones of Duke is on the radar. And I know people might say, well, won't he be there at pick 17? He could. He might be. But he might not be. And if you are convicted about a quarterback, there is no such thing as taking a player too early, because if he hits, as Mike will tell you, it's a home run for 10 years.
I understand that, but I think if you go back to the 2014 Minnesota Vikings, that could be really instructive for us, because I think at 6, look, they need a pressure player. They were 30th in the league in sacks last year. They just traded Olivier Vernon. So if they took a pressure player at 6, like Minnesota did in 2014, where they took Anthony Barr, and then they came back and took Teddy Bridgewater. So I understand what Field's saying in terms of how the quarterbacks move up, but if they could take the pressure player at 6 and then come back and take Daniel Jones, quarterback of Duke, at 17, that to me is a more efficient way that they could go.
I fully understand, and obviously if they can do that, they can do it. What I feel like you're telling me is you think that if they roll the dice, Daniel Jones, there's a good chance isn't still there at 17.
Well, so maybe the best way to operate would be this, because yes, I do think there is an excellent chance that someone else could take him before pick 17. You've got teams in the middle of the draft order. Cincinnati could be in the market for a quarterback. Miami could be in the market for a quarterback. The Washington Redskins could be in the market for a quarterback.
Right.
And there's only 4 that we all love in this year's draft class, or at least are considering first-round prospects, and Kyler Murray is going to be long gone. You have to take the bird in hand at some point if you are the New York Giants.
But great, one thing I would say, though, is, and this is what's going to be so interesting, one of the most important factors of this year's draft is Josh Rosen, because if Kyler Murray does go first overall, Josh Rosen could be a factor for, let's say, Washington. And maybe the Giants at 17 could just wait right there for a guy like Daniel Jones, because Washington or Miami trades for Rosen, and now all of a sudden that's one less team that they're competing with.
When does Rosen get traded? That's the other piece of this. If they're going to take Murray 1, when do they trade Rosen?
I think people believe that if they're taking Kyler Murray, a deal for a first-night pick, which seems unlikely, would be orchestrated in the next 3 days. But maybe more likely is Thursday night into Friday morning, the Josh Rosen market heats right back up, and maybe a day 2 pick is involved.
And so you're talking about getting a second or a third round pick or some package of those. What a disaster that would be when you consider what they gave up to trade up. Super quick.
Yeah, and Josh Rosen may go on a physical at some point this week, which is allowed under the rules. Patriots did that a number of years ago. Randy Moss went on a physical while they were negotiating to trade for him. So let's watch that carefully. If Rosen takes a visit or two, obviously a trade wouldn't be far behind.